Well, for more on how the corporate community is responding to the gun control debate, I'm joined by Stanford University law professor John Donohue. Welcome to the show.
Good to be with you, Rachelle.
So what responsibility do or should corporations have when responding to these public crises?
Well, of course, this is a matter that each corporation is going to have to decide their own legal responsibility not to sell guns if they're permissible in the particular jurisdiction. But as we see, many of them are responding to the outcry all across the nation that this is a problem that should be addressed, and they're trying to do some action in the one limited area where they can act.
So as we have this gray area where the government is figuring out how to act and these companies are then taking it upon themselves, for example, as we saw with raising the legal age to buy guns to 21, 20-year-old filing a lawsuit as they refuse to. How problematic is this gray area?
Well, it is interesting, and you see that there is going to be pushback in whatever direction people go. So if companies continue to sell guns to individuals or maybe sell assault weapons, they will probably confront angry consumers who are upset about that particular decision. On the other hand, if they take the action to curtail these sales, they're going to face legal challenges and some angry responses from the NRA and their supporters.
And are we likely to see any momentum in the other direction with perhaps gun owners supporting companies that aren't changing their policies?
Absolutely. You're going to see people line up. This could be polarizing. It's interesting and I think appealing that there are corporate executives that are expressing a socially responsible position, but it's unclear what the ultimate effect will be if there's a backlash on the other side.
And do you think now companies are increasingly being forced to take a political stand when some of these issues come up, and that could potentially affect their brands?
Yeah, it's a much more complicated world. In the past, companies tried to avoid this because, as we see here, a step in one direction may be appealing to one group, but it risks offending others. I do think that Dick's and Walmart see that in the country as a whole, a very, very large percentage of people, approaching 95%, want to see some serious action taken to reduce mass shootings. And so I think they feel that the numbers are on their side, even though the supporters of the NRA can be very vocal.
Now, after several other high-profile mass shootings over the years, could the Parkland shooting really be the difference maker when it comes to gun reform?
You know, I don't think it's this single episode, because we've had 3 of the 10 worst mass shootings in American history have occurred in the last 5 months. And this is putting us on a trajectory that causes increasing alarm for each one of these. So there's something unique about a school shooting that really engenders community response, but it came on the wake of 2 other horrific mass shootings in recent months. And in general, the mass shooting problem in the United States has been getting worse and will indeed, I predict, continue to get worse until significant steps are taken at the federal level to address that problem.
Now, another reaction we see is that it seems like you see these new products and new businesses like shooting shelters, bulletproof backpacks, and active shooter training, etc., crop up after these deadly incidents. Now, how much of that is distasteful versus smart business, or is it really a mix?
You know, again, it depends a little on your orientation on these questions. It does seem distasteful to many, but in the United States, businesses are very quick to respond to selling opportunities, and indeed, this has been the NRA's essential appeal over the last 20 years to find ways to sell guns and gun accoutrements to as many people in the United States as possible.
And what are some of the more interesting developments or discussions you're seeing surrounding gun safety or personal defense going forward?
Do you mean in terms of possible legislation?
Yes.
You know, I do think at some point the United States is going to get universal background checks. It's hard in a democracy to resist the will of 95% of the American people. Right now we have a Congress that is very beholden to the NRA, but even NRA members overwhelmingly support universal background checks. So I'm hoping that will come sooner rather than later. Of course, it's tragic that in 2004, the federal assault weapon ban that was in place was allowed to lapse. And at least if we could move in the direction of a ban on high-capacity magazines, that would have some potential to reduce the number of deaths in these horrific episodes.
Certainly hope so. Thank you so much. Professor John Donohue there from Stanford University.